go back to the phone now. Just, I'm assuming either coming fresh off a vote or between votes or whatever. We have Congressman Paul Ryan joining us by telephone. Good morning, Congressman.
I'm doing both. I'm between votes and just coming off a vote.
All right. What do we just vote on?
Well, we're doing the highway bill right now, so some amendments right now.
Okay. What I wanted to get just your quick statements on, Congressman, is the Supreme Court's decision yesterday. The Republican base is out there pretty much saying, okay, this is now the ultimate end game call of repeal and replace.
Yes.
And I know that you're on that page.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not happy with the ruling. It's a strange ruling in that it upholds what we've been making all along, the Commerce Clause, and that the government cannot make you do something or not do something. It can't control individual personal behavior like this. But what they did was they contorted the letter of the law to say that this is a tax, even though it says it's a penalty, in order to make it constitutional. Basically, in summarizing his statements, the Chief Justice Roberts said, it's not our job for the Supreme Court to do this. This is up to the people. So what he basically said is the American people will have to decide whether they want to keep this law or not in the election. That's essentially what he said. And that's kind of what it comes down to. This ruling clearly really raises the stakes of this next election. This law effectively takes over our healthcare sector by the federal government. It has a huge tax on all Americans, especially middle and lower income Americans. That's now been ruled as a tax. There are 21 taxes in the bill. 12 of them hit people who are middle and low income. And I think it's going to do a lot of damage to our healthcare system. It also does a lot of damage to Medicare itself. So this is going to be a big part of the election. It's also a big part of jobs. And by knocking down the Medicaid provision, basically saying that states no longer have to be coerced in putting more people into Medicaid, those people will go into Obamacare, which costs a lot more than Medicaid, so it's going to explode the deficit as well.
Well, I thought there was one bright spot there that I've talked about, Congressman. It's the fact that we do have clarity that this ultimately is now a tax. It's being called a tax. It has to be called a tax for the law to stand. And I think that should wake up people that are, really not for raising taxes that much anymore, and realize that there is a significant cost to the implementation of this plan.
Oh, yeah. Well, health insurance premiums for families have gone up an average of $1,200 a year for families since the law passed. Now you're going to have a much higher tax on top of that for people who do not comply. And if they do buy the health insurance, what the actuaries tell us is it's going to get much more expensive. So, that is a massive tax no matter how you slice it, in effect or now by law, by the court. And so, what's concerning is this was not sold this way. It's sort of a violation of the president's pledge not to tax low and middle income people, that this wasn't a tax. The only way to uphold the law is now, concur and agree that it's a tax. So it was kind of deceptively sold. What troubles me the most, looking back in the past, being here when this law came through, it barely passed, is that if this would have been called a tax at the time they were trying to pass it, there's no way this would have passed Congress.
I had a caller that said that very same thing earlier, that, wait a minute, this was not called a tax when it went through, and so now I'm being taxed, and I didn't even have a chance to be represented, in my view.
Well, right. I mean, Bart Stupak is a friend of mine who, I work out with him every morning in the gym, and we talked about this bill a lot. I disagreed with his ultimate vote on that, but if you remember, a lot of the votes sort of hinged around his vote. It came down to just a few people, and it would not have done that if this thing was called a tax. Mm-hmm. And so, now it's just basically it's in the hands of the electorate.
Absolutely. Congressman, the other thing I wanted to ask you about, there's a lot of concern out there, warranted or not, about this potential increase in the student loan interest rate effectively doubling.
That's going to be dealt with today in about 2 minutes when I go vote.
And how will you vote?
I'm voting for it. I'm running the numbers right now at the last minute. I got another, the Highway Trust Fund. I want to make sure that Wisconsin is not a donor state, which is when we pay our gas taxes at the pump, I want to make sure we get $1 back for $1 we pay in gas taxes. And I'm pretty confident that that's the case, but I'm looking through a few more spreadsheets that they just finished last night. So that bill, the transportation bill, also has a student loan provision. I'm supportive of that. I'm 99% sure. I just want one more spreadsheet that my staff is standing here waiting to show me to look at, because I want to make sure that when Wisconsinites go to the gas pump and pay their gas taxes, that we're not paying for roads in New York. I want to make sure we're paying for roads in Wisconsin.
All right. Well, fair enough. Well, I'll let you get back to work, Congressman. Thank you so much for your time.
All right.
Thanks very much. Thanks for being out there.